AndyNowicki, altrightnovelist.com. Returning to the incel question one last time. This will probably be the last time. But I remember that in a previous video I discussed my problems with incels and clarified what it was that I specifically had a beef with, so to say, with respect to inceldom or the incel perspective on things. And I found something in between then and now. I found a podcast by this guy who's, I guess, been getting some attention as the sort of face of the movement, and I just forgot his name, so I'm looking it up right now. Jack Peterson. He's been interviewed a couple times on a couple different, I guess he's sort of, again, like I said, for better or for worse, representing incels everywhere. And he's not a bad-looking guy, and he's not a, poorly spoken guy either. So I'm not sure what exactly is incel about him, because I thought the incels were people guys who, because they were ugly or short or painfully shy or whatever, had a difficult time, putting themselves out there and being able to find girlfriends or whatever. But so it is, so it goes. So this guy, Jack Peterson, had a podcast up that's just been taken down like a few minutes ago. He had a podcast up, I think it was called the Incel Cast, and he had an episode up of this podcast, which was about Jack Manassian and the Toronto massacre. But I'm serious. Just like 2 minutes ago, I went to look it up again, and I got this thing on gay old YouTube saying this video has been removed because of violence. Well, I mean, it wasn't a violent video. It was ridiculous. It's just YouTube being YouTube again. But in any case, what I found on this video was evidence of what I was talking about. And that is the panel, which consisted of Jack Peterson and a few other guys, all of whom, were relatively well-spoken and even kind of funny, bright, not sounding terribly like you would expect the incel sort of guy to sound. But in any case, I mean, maybe they come in all different forms and all shapes and sizes and types. I'm open to that possibility. But there was an exchange that they had where they were talking about how people say things like, oh, well, you should get over it, sex is not that important. And they were saying, but it is important, and love is important. Every poetry, every poem, every song is about love, and we want it for ourselves, and we're not getting it, and that's frustrating to us. And what I got from all of this was a confirmation of what I was saying before, and this jibes with my general critique of incel as I conceive it. Now, I have a few people out there who are, I guess, who identify as incel, and I am not, as I've said before a couple of times, I'm not hostile to incel. In fact, I am, I think in a broader cultural sense, friendly with incel in the same way that I'm friendly with MGTOW. I don't identify as incel, I don't identify as MGTOW, I'm not really much of an identifier, I'm not much of a self-labeler, make of that what you will. Maybe you think that that makes me pretentious or something, I don't know, but it's just not something I like to do, generally speaking. I'll call myself certain things. I'm Catholic, I'm conservative, I'm pro-life, you know, there are certain labels that I will embrace. But as far as saying I'm a this or I'm a that, you know, to be a part of some movement or other, I'm usually a little skittish about that. And I also don't really like to use terminology. I don't really enjoy lingo. That's why even things that are so innocuous as saying red pill, blue pill, black pill, all this pill stuff, I really can't use that kind of terminology without putting it in quotation marks, and air quotes gets pretty irritating and old after a little while. So as a result, I get pretty irritating and old. I'm already old, so, but I've become irritating as well as being old. But in any case, I'm not sure why I got off on that little tangent there. This is all just to say that, you know, I am generally someone who I think would be friendly with the incels, but I do have, I suspected before that I had a bone to pick with them or a critique of them. And now, after hearing this podcast, I am confirmed in that general stance. And I mean, again, I wish I still had the damn podcast here so I could play them saying these exact words. But what it basically boils down to is the incels are needy. They have needs. These needs aren't being met, and because of that, they're angry and frustrated. None of which I have any problem with. Okay, it makes sense. If you know, we have an inborn need or desire for companionship, for love, for romance, for intimacy, whatever you want to call it, for validation from the opposite sex. These are things that I think are ingrained in us in one way or another. I don't know. I may have said they were inborn. I don't know whether I would say that they're totally genetic. And another thing I'm leery about is all this Darwinian terminology. You know, everybody says, well, the reason why men do this is because, it's what they had to do to save their species, and the way the women do that. I mean, some things are just the way that men and women are. Some things just are reflections of our behavior. And every kind of attempt to justify behavior by citing, evolution or adaptations for evolution, that always raises another question. You know, why adapt? Why is that even a thing in the first place? Everything gets called into question. People think that questions are being answered by just appealing to Darwinian notions, but I've never found that satisfying in the least. But in any case, I do think that we have certain drives that we're either born with, or that we have as a result of being culturally conditioned in one way or another. And whether it's inborn or bred into us, either way, they are drives that we have. They are needs, they are desires that we have. Okay? And I don't have a problem with incel at all saying we're rejected, we're men who are seen as unappealing, and we're rejected and we want love and intimacy and we're not getting it, and this makes us angry and frustrated and upset. I don't mock them for that at all. I want to make that very clear. There's nothing in the least that I see as wrong with that. You know, acknowledgement. Now the problem is when you get stuck there, when it's somehow okay for you just to be needy and to keep having these needs, and well, I mean, not to keep having these needs, but to just find it justifiable to remain in this needy state, as opposed to eventually saying something like, well, look, these needs I have aren't being met, these desires I have aren't being met. I need to deal with that. What do I do? How do I deal? Well, what about finding a way to simply live with the lack? Okay? To stop being so obsessed with or driven to this this constant state of, oh, I want attention, I want love, I want validation, and for me, of course, what is a refrain is status. These things that a man hungers for. This thing that a man hungers for is to be high status. Okay, and this is ultimately, from my perspective, from what I am arguing here, man's undoing. Because the desire for status is what makes a monkey out of a man, to repurpose Darwinian talk here for my own purposes. It's the whole idea that you should that you should just be okay with yourself as this bundle of needs, and you should not try to transcend it, not try to rise above it, not try to just discipline yourself, temper yourself to live with the lack. Okay? Because I would argue almost, I mean, I'm not totally sure how I feel about this, but I would argue almost that the very notion of love, not that love doesn't exist, but the whole notion of romantic love, the whole notion of companionship as somehow filling this void for you, that once you have it, you will be fulfilled. I think all of that is to a large extent false conditioning, because the reality is that having a need, having a desire, having a drive does not correspondingly mean that the need that you have corresponds with something out there that will fulfill that need. Or rather, it's not to say that just because you think, once I have a girlfriend, once I have sex, once I have notches on my bedpost, once I have female validation, or whatever, however you want to look at it, as a short-term or a long-term thing, in a PUA, pickup artist, dating coach sense of the word, or in a, looking for a wife kind of sense of the word. There's no reason to think that it's necessarily there, right? That once you have it, you will have this thing that you will finally have this thing that you want, and it'll bring you all sorts of happiness. And even more than that, I would argue, and my argument all along is, and has been, that there's something deeply degrading about adopting this perspective that, well, I got to do this, that, and the other thing. If I want to meet a girl, I got to do this and that because girls like this and that. Like I said before, Okay, girls like a guy with who is successful, a high status guy. Okay, so you seek status in order to be successful, in order to get girls. Okay, but what are you doing? You're, again, as I said before, and I'll use this metaphor again. You are basically learning to be a circus animal, jumping through hoops to get the thing that you think you want, the thing that you think you desire, the thing that you think will bring you happiness or will make you feel validated. And it's not about seeking another's. It's not about validating yourself through other people's eyes, right? And this is the other thing I want to emphasize. I am not opposed to self-improvement. I'm not opposed to, some people see the incels and say, hey, you guys need to hit the gym and work on yourselves and get more confidence and blah blah blah, so you can meet more girls and have more success with women. And I think it's good to hit the gym. I think it's good to get in shape. I think it's bad to be out of shape. Okay? I think you should take care of yourself. I think you should have respect for yourself, and you shouldn't abuse your body. Okay? I'm not a health nut. I don't have any particular plan in mind, for a particular type of diet that I'm espousing here or advocating. But, in a general sense, I do think it's good to take care of yourself. So I'm all for self-improvement, and I'm all for having confidence. Okay? I'm not saying it's good, you should just curl up in a fetal position and not be able to leave the house. And if a girl ever comes up and talks to you, you should. It's good to just be a stuttering mess and not know what to say and not know what to do with yourself. Of course, you shouldn't be like that. You shouldn't be like that because, women are just people like you are. That's really giving them too much credit in a way. It's giving them too much power. Not to say that women are bad. Okay, but just to say that it is. I think there is a certain aspect of it that's kind of pathetic, and that you do need to get over. And it's good to take care of yourself, and it's good to do things, to live your life to the fullest, and to do all the what you need to do to succeed in the way that you define success. I'm not anti any of that, but it's all that should all be an end in itself. Okay, it's not a means to an end. It's not a means towards obtaining status. It's not a means towards obtaining status so you can meet women. And that is the beef that I had with the charisma matrix guy, which I've talked about before in a prior video. And he is all about, okay, demonstrate that you've got confidence. Don't be a kiss ass. Don't be a cringing little lapdog of anybody. Because if you do that, he says, you'll obtain social status. Well, I don't give a shit whether you obtain social status or not. You might not. Speaking for myself, I'm not somebody who kisses up to anybody. I'm not somebody who is a lapdog for anybody. I think I'm fairly confident in the way that I relate to other people, and I'm fucking low. I'm the lowest of the low. And that's what it's all. That's what this whole thing is about. I am the low status male. So no, it hasn't worked for me, but that's not what it's supposed to do. It's not supposed to work. It's not supposed to be a means to an end of obtaining something else. Okay. It's a good way to live in and of yourself. Have respect, have pride, take pride in yourself. And don't be enslaved by this desire for status. And don't be enslaved by this desire for, oh, if I just do this, that, and the other thing, I'll be popular and the girls will like me. Well, you know what? Just do this, that, and the other thing. Forget this, that, and the other thing. Do the things that are good for you. That's my philosophy. That's what I advocate here. And if it works for you, then it works. And if it doesn't, then it doesn't. Again, my problem isn't with status itself. It's with doing things to yourself, doing violences to yourself in order to become the kind of man that you think you're supposed to be, to act like, I don't know, somebody who isn't you. Be you. Be who you are. And damn the consequences. You know, do what is best for you. That's not to say there's no morality. I'm not saying do whatever works for you. I'm not, a relativist, but we are all different in our personality types, and it's my perspective, my philosophy, that we should eschew this desire for status. And this is something that it's a lash that I turn on myself as much as it is one that I turn against the world, or the world, whoever watches these videos. I don't claim to be the embodiment of all these things that I espouse, but it's something that I work towards. So, just a few more thoughts on the subject of incel, and hopefully this made sense to somebody out there. My name's Andy Nowicki. You can check out my work at altrightnovelist.com. Thank you for watching.